I want us to hear about how broadcasters are using technology to actually tap into new audience and drive new revenue. And for that purpose, I'd like to invite David Springall from Yospace onto the stage. David.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Springall, I'm the CTO of Yospace, and we are a streaming technology company that specializes in dynamic ad insertion into live streaming. Okay, this clicker's not working. So what I'm here to present is sort of the findings of a report that we sponsored a company called MTM to research. MTM are an international research and consultancy company that specialize in the media technology and advertising arena. So the report itself you can download from our website, yospace.com/MTM, and it basically, the three main topics that it covered by interviewing executives and leading media firms and ad agencies was to find, first of all, get the feeling of what the current state of live and linear TV was, to determine what the sort of the future of the landscape is, of the digital landscape, and the steps that broadcasters should be taking in order to protect and enhance their current position. So the current state of live and linear TV. So the most obvious thing, which is from Ofcom, is TV can offer advertisers mass reach at a single point in time, which is the online medium is still unable to achieve. And this is something that we've heard sort of many times this morning. It's a range problem. Right. Live TV is the fastest way of getting reach, and to big advertisers, well, and big advertisers are still looking for it. So high reach channels have the unique ability to reach an increasingly fragmented media landscape. A broadcaster describes it as having intense value for audiences and advertisers. As the market fragments with online, the GAFA or GAFAN or NAGAF or whatever, however you want to say, the value to advertisers to reach audiences in mass, in a concurrent manner is increasing. That value is being seen not just by, obviously, the broadcasters that currently own the rights or are used to having the rights. It's also being seen by the tech companies as well that are moving more into the live space. So it's not an area that we feel that we can just assume that will always be in the domain of the traditional broadcast space. Online companies can disrupt online sports as well. So that value is being recognized. That's why we're seeing the major tech companies jump in. They're global and they have cash. This is an attractive combination to a sports rights owner, a global media agency provided. So on addressable advertising, now we've talked about addressable advertising quite a bit today. There's Addressable, which is the AdSmart type technology, which has a certain level of granularity, and then there is the online targeting, which theoretically you can target individuals. Of course, the ability to target individuals is entirely based on data, and I'll be talking about that a bit later on. But fundamentally, the idea of being able to focus your creative to different demographics or different groups of users. So a US broadcaster said, we've got to maximize the value of the live linear audience. Ultimately, that's going to be enabling dynamic ad insertion on our players and via the TV. Broadcasters need to go out and invest in the technology that can tap into the advertising money. If they can do that, they can grow TV ad spend dramatically. Part of the advantage of the word that actually was used was ROI, but the context was meaning increasing revenue per ad, is that it allows us to bring down our ad load. Now that consumers have a strong ad-free set of alternate experiences, this allows us to offer a cleaner experience. So the first important point is, in order to not survive, but to enhance the value in live streaming or live sports or live TV, you have to build a world-class user experience online. This is for the digital space. Now, there are a number of pillars of this. I could probably talk for an hour on this, but there are three things that we've picked out. The idea of time-shifted or linear time-shifted, where you can rewind to the beginning of the program. If you missed the first part, you can go back. That provides broadcasters or the delivery system the ability to actually contract the broadcast breaks to make them shorter, providing an enhanced online user experience. So the ability to be able to scrub freely through the current program, just as you would if you were recording it via a PVR. But with the ability potentially to apply ad scrubbing policies around how freely the user is able to scrub. Enhanced player. In the case of sports content, users being able to jump around the timeline to specific highlights of the match that have happened, allowing the user to effectively create their own instant replay at will according to how they want to enjoy the match. And of course, you can deliver all of this flexibility and apply your own advertising management around how much you're willing to allow users to scrub ads. And finally, low latency. Online streaming has traditionally been associated with very large latencies, 30 seconds maybe to a minute. A lot is happening in the sort of the really propeller head nuts and bolts area of streaming, which will mean that I predict within 3 years it will be quite common for live streaming to actually match, if not beat in some cases, the latency you see from broadcast television. That is actually going to be technically possible, and there are already demonstrations of it working. It's going to take 3 years or so for it to be rolled out, but that will be possible. Now, that gives a great user experience to the user, but for user-centric or one-to-one addressable advertising, that creates scale problems. In order to make a decision at the point of the ad break, you have to make a huge number of calls, all at a very, very tight, defined moment in time. So you have to start coming up with ways of scaling that. And in order to not just be able to scale it from just first-party sold advertising, but also for third-party and programmatic selling. The ecosystem can't react fast enough if you're working in a very low latency environment. So dynamic content offers great potential for dynamic advertising. So this is I believe a English cricketer, and I'm not much of an expert in cricket, and given that a lot of you are not from the UK, maybe you aren't. But this apparently, I've been told, is a cricketer letting in a goal. And this is something that I believe that we've not seen for quite a while, unless, of course, you've been watching the Ashes. So cricket is an interesting is an interesting sport in the fact that it probably represents the most dynamic sport. It goes for days. It goes on for 5 days. It's a match that goes on for 5 days, that you can put an ad in pretty much every 5 minutes if you want. So, it's probably the most monetizable sport I can think of. So sport has fluid break timings. You don't know when the breaks are going to occur. Breaks can be crashed. Something may happen, you need to crash back into the live action. You can also have unplanned high-value ad breaks, extra time, penalties, and so on and so forth. Those, in tournament matches, knockout matches, those ads, those unplanned ads, potentially have huge concurrent watching. So all of these things are technical challenges with how do we plan, how do we get the ads into the stream. So the advertising technology that you use has got to ensure that it does not break the user experience. It's got to be complementary to what you do. This is a graph of not scientifically put together, but it's a rough idea of, you have the idea of the league type sports on the bottom left, which have fixed durations. They have a half time, static, relatively static, going through to sort of the knockout tournaments where you have more dynamicism, and you've got right at the top sports that have many opportunities to put advertising in. So taking advantage of that dynamic nature of live sports beyond that which could be done through traditional broadcast methods is another opportunity to drive monetization without annoying the user too much, provided that you're not covering over the content. So on data and collaboration. So as I said, data is vitally important to be able to target, regardless of what the value to various different levels of advertisers targeting actually means. You've got to have data. There has to be a strategic plan for data and a common currency. So, we need to get together to protect the industry and revenues. We really need to be pushing forward as one and making the unique value of data-driven TV and advertising clear to agencies. Now, this is something that it seems to be quite common throughout this industry, that a need for standardization or at least a common currency of understanding data for agencies is critical. Agencies are looking for specific audiences, and at the moment Facebook knows most about its audience. Advanced TV advertising is going to let broadcasters offer the same insight and targeting around very valuable content. So, in summary, when streaming live dynamic content, deliver a great user experience to carry forward the brand that you've already established in broadcast. Ensure that the advertising technology that you use maximizes the revenue opportunity, but does not disrupt the user experience. And be ready to build and use data to deliver efficient monetization in an increasingly competitive market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. I think we've got time for a question from the audience if anyone's got one. If not, I have one myself.
Oh.
Speak now or forever hold your tongue. Oh, is that one? No, that is one at the back. Okay, the question I have is, this all looks absolutely great, but how much growth is it going to drive, do you think, in reality? How much more inventory do you see a typical broadcaster begin to unlock as a percentage of their total digital inventory?
That's a good question. It's one I'm possibly not best placed to answer, but what I can do is give you an example of something that we did. We provided dynamic insertion for India versus Sri Lanka 2020 cricket. That's right. It's the fast-moving cricket game. Incredibly scaled to 1.5 million concurrent users, and that effectively the online user experience of that would actually had someone manually injecting. They were taking the feed from broadcast, but they were manually injecting ads inside, between wickets, and they generated a huge amount more ad avails by having this effectively utilizing the technology which could be more reactive than perhaps in the broadcast in order to drive enhanced revenue. So I mean, that's going back to the point I made about dynamicism is leveraging that. One of the things that we're able to do is if, for example, you put in a 30-second avail and you realize you have to crash back, we can actually play out the ad, and then that particular user will watch in time-shifted mode until the next avail, and then they catch up with real time. So that's one of the things you can do in this sort of technology that helps that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, David. I think that's all we have time for now. A round of applause, everyone. Thank you.